Friends, I want to thank you for giving me just a moment today. My name is Charles Stoker, and I'm the host of Kindle the Fire television broadcast. Airs all across America. We are amazed at what God has been doing through this television broadcast. God gave us a message of hope, a message of faith, a message of restoration. And for the past 4 years, we've been preaching that message all across America by television. I am amazed, folks, at the calls that we've been receiving. We've had calls from all 50 states, including Alaska and Hawaii. I remember the call from Alaska. The first one that we got was an Eskimo lady who called from way up above the Arctic Circle to say that the message we preached had touched her life. We've received hundreds of calls just like that. Not too long ago, I received a call from a young man. His name was Charlie from Ohio. Charlie called, and he left a message on one of the KTF answering machines and said, "I have seen the broadcast and would love to talk to Pastor Stoker about coming to Ohio and preaching in our church." Well, I followed up and I called Charlie. I found out that Charlie had been watching the program for quite some time there in his home in Ohio. I also found out that Charlie was a 20-year alcoholic, bound by alcohol, feeling like a failure. He tried to quit, he tried to change, but nothing he had done had worked in his life. While watching the broadcast, God began to touch his life. And every week, we talked about God's power to change, God's power to deliver, God's power to set people free. It began to speak to Charlie, and Charlie began to realize, I can change, but I can only change by the power of God. And God changed his life. He felt led of God to start a church. He began a church, and in fact, he rented a coon hunter's meeting building. And he began having church there on Thursday nights and Sunday afternoons and began to preach the messages that God had given him because God had changed his life. He began to record the broadcast and show it to his church members. And he told his church members one day, he said, "I've been watching this Pastor Stoker and been watching Kindle the Fire for quite some time. And I really believe that he would come and preach in our church, and I'm going to call him." Some of his church members said, "Charlie, he won't come. In fact, he probably won't even return your call. You know how those television preachers are. There's no access to them." Well, when we got the call, God touched my heart, and I called Charlie. And Charlie began to share with me his testimony of how God had delivered him from alcohol, how God had called him to preach, how God had put it on his heart to start a church there in Ohio, and what God was doing in that church. Well, we jumped on a plane and flew to Ohio. In fact, we took some cameras with us because we were excited to see what God was doing through Kindle the Fire television ministry. It was a thrill. It was a joy to preach in Charlie's church and see what God was doing there. All because that we stepped out in faith 4 years ago and began a broadcast called Kindle the Fire. Well, it fired Charlie up. Friend, it'll fire you up. You may be like Charlie, feeling like a failure and a loser, feeling like you've blown any chance you ever had of being used of God. But I'm telling you, God's mercy is new every morning, and God can come into your life this very moment and change you and get you into God's plan and purpose. I'd like for you to go back to our website now, and I want you to look at the broadcast schedule. I'd like for you to watch one of these great programs, and like Charlie, you'll be changed too as you hear the unchanging, powerful message that God's given us of hope and love and restoration.